excellent day for an exorcism.
Welcome to Just Another Horror Podcast.
I'm John. Fuck capitalism!
I'm Lindsay, trying to write horror novels because I was a weird kid.
The whole world is your urinal.
Fuck the prime time, bitch!
Make the little mark. There it goes. Everybody, come on.
Hey.
Let's make a jazz song.
Woo!
That's not jazz.
Butter,
There we go. Hey!
What do you want from me?
We can start scatting.
That would be horrible.
Hello, all you cool cats. And welcome to Just Another Horror Podcast. I am
Forgot your name?
Jazzy John. Oh boy, I almost went another way with that.
Jizzy?
Jizzy John and the Jizz Masters.
And Milu. I'm M.
Okay.
I'm Lindsay.
Yeah.
You got ready for it?
I'm trying to think, what's a good jazzy name for myself? I don't know.
Obviously, we're not very
I'm
jazzy.
lovely Lindsay. No, I don't know.
What are we reviewing? Oh, Abe Lincoln.
All right, wait. Let me turn to
Abraham
my
Lincoln,
new.
Vampire
Hunter.
You got your. Oh, there we go.
There we go.
Perfect. You have no notes.
I have no notes.
I feel like it would have been impossible to take notes.
Yeah.
Unless you were like committed to this.
Right.
Which we are a professional podcast and we're not committed
But
to
there
anything.
it is. I would be.
You get the title.
I would be pausing it every 30
You
seconds.
have to. This movie moves at 1,000,000 miles an hour.
It does. It does.
Whew, it's exhausting.
But it made me, I got familiar with my history a little bit more because I did research after the fact.
Looked up stuff on Abe Lincoln, and most of the people in this movie
Mm-hmm.
were real people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And they were real people in Abe Lincoln's life. Mm-hmm. And they did the things that they said they did, like the shop owner, and I don't remember anybody's name. We're going to have to pull up.
I mean, who knew Abraham Lincoln's mother was killed by a vampire? Now we know.
Yeah.
And his son. Typhoid?
Yeah.
No, vampires.
Right. They didn't mention his 3 other sons. He actually had 4 sons, and only one of them lived into adulthood. And I was telling him, the research I was doing, he was really severely depressed most of his life. And it all kind of makes sense now.
I mean, we could just talk about Abraham Lincoln for this whole thing.
Oh, the movie. Okay, so the movie.
I mean, no, we could, though.
He's a very interesting, I feel like
Yeah.
he's a very interesting person in history, and
Right.
not just because of, because yes, he was president and the things that he did and that kind of thing, but also I feel like personally, a lot of people described him as, awkward and, just kind of, introverted and weird and not comfortable with,
Yeah.
all kinds of stuff. So I think it's really interesting that he ends up being president.
Mm-hmm.
And having to be in charge and interact with people and command things. And
He was lodged between 2 of the worst presidents in our history. James Buchanan and what's the other guy?
Andrew Johnson.
Andrew Johnson.
Andrew
Yeah.
Johnson.
They were both horrible presidents. And he was stuck during the worst time in the country's history between 2 of the worst presidents in the country's history.
Mm-hmm.
So, again, it's much more interesting to talk about Abraham Lincoln than to talk about his vampire hunting exploits.
I did enjoy the montages. I enjoyed
There's a ton of them, yeah.
the Abe Lincoln with the axe montages, practicing doing
That's
all
cool
his
as shit. I wish Joe Biden could handle an axe like Abe Lincoln could.
Maybe every president has been a vampire hunter and had to
Just
pass
keeps
it
going.
down.
You never know.
Yeah, I don't know any. They're just old fucking white dudes. Fuck
Yeah, they
them.
are. Well,
Except Obama, he's an old fucking black dude. They're all fucking old.
well, John F. Kennedy was,
I was
only
gonna say
40.
JFK.
How old was he?
He was
42?
Yeah,
somewhere
he was
around there.
young.
He was younger.
So there.
Alright, I was wrong. But if you're young, you get shot. That's how it
Right,
works.
yeah.
All right. Yeah, I have absolutely no.
I don't have
what's
much to
the
say
plot?
about this movie. I didn't
The plot
particularly
is that a
enjoy it.
vampire kills his mom after he stands up for this asshole who he says are
Slave
slaves.
trader.
They're not slaves. They're his
Right.
friend. I don't
He
know,
has a
man. I
vendetta since
struggle with
childhood.
this. Yeah, the guy that he's mad at doesn't age a day, but that's because he's a vampire, I guess, so that makes sense.
Right.
I feel like the worst part of this movie was Henry, the guy that's like training
I
him.
agree.
His lines and the way he's like, he is creepy. Like, he's creepy. His lines are weird and awkward and cheesy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the stuff he says
I
is
think
just
a lot of his lines are.
it's over the top, and like I feel like he was the worst part of the movie.
A lot of his lines are ADR too.
What's that mean?
It means that they're showing an action scene and they're having him talk in another room, and his lines are over top of them, doing all the stuff. You can tell, like, it's stuff that he has to say, and they're like, how do we get this in the movie? We can't have him just standing there saying this shit, so just put action scenes and montages over top of it. And
Okay.
Also, this movie didn't feel very horror to me. You know,
it really didn't.
it felt
there
more
was gross-
actiony.
Yeah, action. There was some gross stuff in there though.
Yeah.
There's
You know
some
what?
bloody gore stuff.
We haven't discussed this. I need to ask you two, so we're going to go one at a time since this episode's going to be short. Em, what do you think of when you think of horror? What do you think defines horror?
Well, the first thing I think of is blood and gore.
Okay.
And then the next thing I think about is like creepiness.
Okay. Sure.
What about like a war movie of any sort? Like, would
Yeah.
you consider that to be horror then, since it's gory maybe and violent?
I probably wouldn't call it horror, but I would call it like gross or, you know, like
Scarface has one of the most horrific scenes ever in it, and that movie, by the way, sucks. But it is not horror. It's just, like you said, gross.
Mhm.
It's gross.
I mean, I guess more like slasher type stuff is the first thing that comes to mind. But then I think about like movies that I do like that have plenty of gross stuff in it, like Pulp Fiction or I don't know. They're not my go-to movies. Anything with like gross killing, anything like that is not my go-to.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of look at that stuff a little bit differently.
Has being on the show changed your mind a little bit?
Probably a little bit. I found that I can handle more than I thought I could. And that's kind of by looking at it as less of like horror and more of like action. Because a lot of the stuff that's really gross is like whenever we watched, I hate remembering names of things. Malignant, okay. So like the grossest parts of that, like in the jail cell scene and stuff like that, were more actiony than like slasher horror gross. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I feel like I can handle a little bit more horror than I thought that I could.
And there's definitely very different types of horror too. Like supernatural horror is so different from slasher horror. And I mean, there doesn't necessarily have to be any gore in a movie and it can still be horror.
Right. And I feel like I have very specific opinions on like vampire stuff. I've never had a problem watching vampire stuff. Never. Even though that is like technically horror, you know what I mean? I've never had.
It can get real gross.
And it can get real gross and
Right.
bloody, but I feel like it's like so. I feel like the horror that bothers me the most are things that could actually happen.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You know what I mean? Like the like
Well,
that
then the strangers are off the list then, definitely.
I
The
like The
Strangers?
Strangers.
Yeah.
Funny Games.
I'm sorry
Oh,
about
I saw that,
one.
yeah.
That creeped me out for days, because it was set up to be like it could be so
Definitely,
realistic.
yeah.
You know what I mean? And that really creeped me out. Vampires don't bother me.
Yeah. I had the DVD of The Strangers and my cousin borrowed it and never gave it back.
Give it back.
Yeah.
What's The Strangers? What's that?
It's like some people show up at someone's house, knock on the door, and start attacking them just because they're there.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
that kind of thing really.
Like
would
literally at
bother
the end,
me.
they're like, "Why are you here?" And they're like, "Cause you were home."
Yeah. It reminded me a little bit of the Manson family.
Okay.
That movie creeped me out. I don't get creeped out.
Yeah.
So
It has Liv Tyler in it.
I'm asking you the same question
Okay.
because I did this to everybody that's ever been on the show, and we haven't done it to you guys yet. So what do you think?
You know, to me, horror is a lot about the atmosphere of it. And, I mean, good horror has a really good, like, creepy atmosphere about it.
I was going to say,
me,
do you like that part of it?
Yes,
You like that?
Yeah. And, yeah, like I was saying, like, the genre has so many different types within it, you know? So you've got your slasher films and your supernatural and,
Italian.
Yeah.
Nonsense
Italian horror. Films and, yeah, Dario Argento.
Zombie stuff, vampire stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
you-
you've got, like, monster movies. That'd be one, too.
Did you watch Cemetery Man?
Nope.
Okay. That's
yeah,
okay.
I need to watch it.
Or you don't, it's fine.
I want to watch it, though. I mean, you've been talking about that for a long time, and I still haven't watched it.
He has very strong opinions.
I dropped it a half a point. I did. I gave it a 10 for years
okay.
and years and years. And,
Huh.
yeah, there's
And
some
then you
not
made
so
me
great
more
stuff.
curious, saying that it's hard to review and it's hard to
is.
talk about.
It's very
Yes.
odd.
Yeah, we've done 3 episodes now on this show where it's been like, God, nobody wants to listen to this. It's just, we're just saying what
I
happens.
feel like ours was pretty good.
We did a better job.
Yeah.
Come on. The look you just gave yourself. If you can see it, John, it wasn't good.
You talking to yourself?
Yeah, I did last week on one of the episodes, and it was like, John, cut yourself. Not like that, though. Cut yourself out of the episode.
Oh my god.
All right.
So Abraham Lincoln,
Yeah, his mom was killed by a vampire, so he seeks revenge. He gets drunk one night, and this guy, what's his name, Harry? Henry sees him and is like, I'm going to train you how to fight vampires. Basically saves his life, too, from getting killed by one. Because Abe puts a bullet right in the guy's head, right through his eye. Doesn't do anything.
Yeah, that's like a gross scene. That was like, kind of gross.
So they do a montage of training with an axe. Because he's like, I don't want to shoot.
He's
I'll
like,
use
I'm
an
not a
axe."
gun guy. I'm
Yeah.
just not. That's not my thing.
And I yelled at the TV during the first part of the montage. A lot. Here's an axe. Cut this tree down with one chop.
Oh, yeah.
He hits it.
Yeah.
And then he hits it again. And then he hits it again. And I'm like, I'm not impressed. He said one chop.
That's more
like
than one
6
chop. That's
chops.
like 6 chops. That's not one chop. He's like, shut up, please. So the whole thing where he meets the shopkeeper, Joshua Speed, and meets Mary Todd. So this is after he's all trained up and ready to go, but not actively out on the hunt killing vampires yet. Because, Henry's supposed to tell him when and where to go to kill them.
Tells him where they all are, yeah.
So in real life, he actually was friends with a guy named Joshua Speed, and he was helping him, and he was a shopkeeper, and they stayed together in the room above the shop for many, many years. They slept in the same bed, which is the basis for the rumor that they were in a relationship.
Huh.
And
That would explain his depression.
well, here's what
Part of
happens.
it,
So
anyway.
he's working with Joshua Speed, and he meets Mary Todd, who's like a socialite, and he knows that at some point he needs to get married and all of that kind of stuff. And he becomes engaged to Mary Todd, and Joshua Speed is getting ready to move to another state. And right as he's about to move, Abe breaks up with Mary Todd like 3 days before their wedding. And then he goes into a deep state of melancholy. That's what they That's what they call it, is melancholy. And
That was what depression was back then, right?
Yeah.
It was like melancholia. And
yeah,
stuff.
exactly. So they, the rumor about him and Joshua Speed is because they stayed together for years like that, and I guess it was commonplace for men to stay like boarding houses and sleep in the same bed and that kind of stuff. But it was odd for them to be together like that for so many years.
Okay.
And then he eventually makes up with Mary Todd after Joshua moves away.
So he probably married her just for looks, right?
I guess. I mean, at that
Optics.
time in history, yeah, you had to get.
I feel for the guy, man.
I do.
Yeah.
And I was showing him pictures on Wikipedia, sometimes he just looks bad. He just there are pictures of him, portraits and stuff, where he just looks horrible.
Wow.
And they were saying towards the end of before he was killed, his health was bad and stuff, but
Which they kind of touch on in this. When they're like, you're not eating. They keep mentioning he's not eating. So now we're killing vampires. The first one he kills is at a bank. Which
I thought it was a pharmacist.
is it the pharmacist first? Because he says something like, "There's a deposit tonight, blah blah blah. Go get him." And he goes to the bank and kills. And there's money laying everywhere. And
I don't remember that scene.
the pharmacist, yeah, he does walk in and talk to the pharmacist, and he gets hung upside down.
Right, and then he learns you can't wait to make the kill. You gotta like get in there real quick before they know that you're.
He drops a razor blade into his mouth.
Oh right.
Swings up and cuts himself down.
That's good
This
shit.
movie was so ridiculous.
What? That's good stuff.
Amazing. It is pretty cool too to see like a layer of all these people with all these bowls that they're bleeding out into, so that this vampire can stay alive. That was a neat little touch. But the vampire's dead like that. Like most of the characters in this movie, other than like the main ones, are in it for like a minute, and then they're gone. It felt like they were jamming way too much into a short period of time. They needed this to be like a lot longer.
Did you want it to be
I
longer?
didn't want it to be. But there were times when it would just be like, here he is. It was like in Ghostbusters when they're busting ghosts, and it's just like a little 3-minute. They can play the theme song and have them showing up at buildings and walking out of buildings. And I either wanted more, or I wanted not more of the movie. I wanted more fighting, or I wanted like less people he had to fight and longer fight scenes. You know what I mean? These fight scenes were like real short. He'd show up, kill him with an axe, bury him. Next guy, kill him with an axe, bury him. I don't like montages. I shouldn't say that because I love Rocky IV.
I guess it didn't really. That part didn't really bother me.
It's just me, huh?
I'm not a huge action movie person, and that's more what this felt like to me.
Yeah.
Like, just watching action, I get bored. I don't know. I need, like, a good storyline. Like, to me, this was not a good storyline.
Yes,
No.
it was
Yeah.
not. It was not big on the story part. It felt like it did. It felt like it was action with like some historical facts kind of thrown in there to make it a little bit more not believable. You know what I mean.
What was the name of this kind of thing?
Oh right, yeah. It's called a. Okay, so it's a dark fantasy action horror mashup. So it's taking like a something historical, and then mixing it with some other genre.
Yeah. And I mean, I could see that being interesting, but I did not like how this worked at all.
Yeah.
And I mean, I was just bored watching it, and I had a hard time even focusing on it. So I'm like, because I just like my mind kept drifting to other things because I was just not enjoying myself.
Just jumping around on horses.
No, that was the most ridiculous part, I would say. They have this giant stampede of horses.
Yeah.
They're just jumping from horse to horse while the horses are running full speed.
Parkour,
Like,
right?
That happens.
Yeah.
Horse parkour. It happens. It was a lot of action with not a lot of story.
Yeah.
Extreme! Parkour! Parkour! This is parkour.
Although there were some twists, like the silver on the train wasn't really silver on the train.
I
Laura Man.
kind of figured that out quick. I'm like, why is he betraying Abe? And I'm like, because we had looked up that he was a real person. They were friends for a long time, and I'm like, okay, if that's true, he's not gonna run off and betray him. And then they all got on the train, and I'm like, aren't they like supposed to not be around silver? Why would they attack a silver-filled train? And I'm like, nobody's getting killed by this?
They must have just known it wasn't
There's
really.
just something weird going on here, yeah.
Joshua Speed actually lived to a ripe old age.
Oh, he did?
Yes.
Okay.
It implied that he was killed on the train.
Oh, did he drive the train off the tracks?
So I don't know. Whenever I was reading, I went back. See, I like to when things go fast like that, and I can't really
It's
follow
really hard
it.
to tell.
It says that it's implied that he dies.
Okay.
Yeah, on the train, Adam and Vidoma. Oh, that's the badass girl vampire.
She gets shot by a cross.
And Rufus Sewell,
Okay.
who I know from other movies. They've set fire to the trestle, attack Lincoln, Sturgis, and Johnson during the fight in which Speed is killed. Adam learns the train holds only rocks.
Dun dun dun.
Yeah.
Twist. Oh, okay.
Oh, and I do not like how they threw Harriet Tubman in there. She
Yeah,
had
that
nothing
was
to
just
do
so
with
random.
Harriet Tubman was like in Maryland, Pennsylvania, like eventually moved up to New York and stuff. She was never done in New Orleans. Like
I
that.
didn't like this slavery thing at all. It was insinuated that slavery was there because that helped the vampires eat.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It never gave a clear motivation as to what the vampires wanted.
Yeah.
The main villain is like,
They wanted to take over the country.
They said they don't want to be in the dark anymore. That's what they kept saying.
But at one point, the one guy was like, "Finally, we will have like a country of our own," or something like that.
And like it made it seem like that's why Abraham Lincoln wanted to end slavery was because of the vampires.
Oh, yeah.
And only the vampires.
Yeah.
None of that stuff was necessary.
No.
So we find out Henry is a vampire because he attacks a rapist in an alley. Yeah, he got killed, or he got bit by the head vampire, who killed his wife, fiance, girlfriend, whatever. And they can't kill each other.
Yeah, vampires aren't able to kill their own.
Yeah.
That was a new rule that I've never heard before.
Yeah, me neither.
Okay, keep it short, John, because you've done this 100 times. Vampire movies can't keep their fucking shit straight.
Mm-hmm.
There are a million ways to kill vampires. But sometimes, there's no ways to kill vampires. In this movie, sunlight doesn't kill them.
They've built up their tolerance to it.
Yeah, it depends on the movie.
My goddamn eyes.
That's why in a vampire movie, at some point they have to like set the rules.
Right. Yeah.
Like
every
vampire movie.
Everyone has to, because you're like, all right, what is it this time?
And they're like, well, yeah, the stakes work, but the holy water is just a myth.
I watched.
They always have that scene where they like set
I watched one with Christopher Lee where it was like literally any water killed him. Any water. Near dark, it was sunlight only. So they're driving around the desert turning into fireballs. That movie sucks. Ben will go on and on about how much he loves it, and we're like, no, that's a piece
What's
of
it
shit.
called?
Near Dark.
Near Dark?
It's got Bill Paxton, a bunch of 80s people.
Okay.
Ton of 80s people. And they're cool cowboy vampires in the desert. Okay, the thing that makes this movie suck so much is that one of the characters gets bit by a vampire. They take him to a farmhouse and do a blood transfusion in a barn. And
why are they giving? They're giving the vampire new blood?
No, they're giving some guy that got bit by a vampire new blood.
So that he doesn't become a vampire?
Right.
Okay.
But it's in a barn.
Right.
With just some tubes they found.
And
that movie sucks.
That's always different too. Like, how are you turned? How does a vampire kill you versus how are you just turned?
Which, in this movie, I was a little confused by that. Like, why did his mother die later? Because did she get bit by a vampire? Or like, what happened? It doesn't
even show what happens.
I don't know.
It just shows that he is a vampire. That's it.
I got the idea in this one, like a lot of movies are, if you get bit,
yeah, you become a vampire.
You become a vampire at some point, and it usually takes time. But if you are completely drained of your blood, then you're killed.
But she wasn't, right? Like, she was laying there in bed and she like slowly died. I don't know.
I don't remember the beginning.
Well, he looks down and sees the vampire look up at him.
Right.
It cuts.
But before
to
that,
her in bed, so nobody knows what happened.
Before that, what had happened to her? Had anything, or was
Nothing.
she was just sleeping?
She's sleeping, and he's like, "There's other ways we can get the money." That's not the same thing as money. What's the currency exchange rate on blood to dollar bills?
Well, how much do you get for blood donation?
Cookies.
A T-shirt.
Yeah.
It's not a real good going rate for blood anymore.
Damn economy. Abe decides to become president and fight the vampires from the inside.
Well, and there's like kind of a pause on the whole vampire thing.
Yeah.
It like fast forwards like what?
Now we're heading
20
to the Civil
years?
War. We even cut to like Fort Sumter and all kinds of shit. So it's like, let's make this into a historical movie for like 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah.
So, and then he goes back and he gets his axe out when he realizes there's vampires in the Confederacy and hurts himself. Because he can't spin it like he used to.
All right, he's out of practice. He's old.
But yeah, the Confederacy meets up in Gettysburg with the Union, and there's vampires. And so they shoot and shoot and shoot, and the vampires just destroy the entire fucking army.
Because, not Bart's, but that Adam right? Rufus Sewell.
Yes.
I don't know if that's how you say his name. He made a deal with the Confederate army to bring the vampires in.
We're missing a whole thing where he kidnaps his best friend, brings him to New Orleans, and he's gonna cut his head off and feed him to Abe after he turns him into a vampire.
Oh, at the party, and then Joshua breaks in with the
horse, the
horse
entire
and carriage,
buggy.
and
They just jump on it and ride away with
Okay.
Harriet Tubman for no fucking reason.
This does not do her justice, okay?
No.
She was a badass.
Right.
Like,
She's just there to be like, I am black woman.
pretty much, yeah.
Anyway, yeah, we just skipped over that, but it's not important.
No.
So, yeah, he becomes president, and the badass vampire girl walks in to the fucking White House dressed as a fucking maid, and they just let her go,
Mm-hmm.
and she kills the kid. Henry shows up and is like, I have necromancy powers. And Abe's like, no, I don't do that. But the wife is like,
Mary Todd is like, bring back my son.
it's your fault, asshole. Oh, we forgot to mention that Abe literally admits everything to her.
Oh, yeah, when they first start dating.
Right, yeah. I think she just
Truth
doesn't take him
is-
seriously. She's like,
Right.
wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, she's
Like,
I
like,
killed
just
vampires at
laughing.
night. Oh, how many? 5? Wait, no, 6.
And then when all this, when all the shit comes down, and she's like, what? What's going on? And
Yeah.
you're like, well, I told you.
Yeah.
You held it from me all these... Not
No,
really!
I told you, like, on the third date.
Yeah.
Okay, so their plan is to, like, give the Union silver bullets so they can kill the vampires with silver bullets. And they put it on a train, but the train is not the train that they're on.
Mary Todd and, was it Harriet that was with her?
They're gonna
When
escape.
they were But then at one point they get stopped by the vampires, but then the vampires let them go, but then they have like a whole crew of people behind them. Are they transporting the silver?
I don't know. Maybe?
I can't remember.
I don't
Because
know.
I think Abe says they're doing another train because contingency plan.
Oh right, contingency plan.
Remember that? Remember that in the movie? You said that earlier. I'm sorry, I'm dissing your movie.
Wait till you see what I give it for a rating.
They do that like 3 or 4 times in this movie. They keep bringing back lines
Mm-hmm.
and be like, remember that?
Right.
And I'm like, no, fuck, I can't remember shit. This movie's too long. Joshua Speed gives up Abe to the head vampire,
But not really.
but it's a trick to get them on the train so they can burn it down and the vampires will die. And it works. And they get the silver to the Union, who uses it to shoot the vampires. I am really simplifying this movie.
Mm-hmm.
But, okay, when they're on the train, there's like a million fights going on.
Uh-huh.
And I know it's an action scene, but in real life, like, if this kind of thing goes on, and they made a movie like real life, Abe Lincoln's on a train, he's got his axe, up comes the henchman kills Abe Lincoln. Movie's over. But instead, like, there's no danger with this. When there's 55 henchmen, and the movie still has 45 minutes to go, who's gonna win?
Mm-hmm.
That's why I don't like action movies.
Yeah, I don't either.
Like,
I get that.
if Alan Rickman killed Bruce Willis in Die Hard 20 minutes into the movie would suck.
Mm-hmm.
He has to kill all the henchmen.
Yeah, there is kind of like a, well, they're going to survive anyway, so who cares?
It just
Kind of
takes the
feeling.
tension right out of it.
But then you go see a play, and it's all over.
That's true! That's true! Should have let that
He
vampire
survives.
bite you!
He survives all of that, and then goes to the theater.
Yeah.
Aww. Oh,
That made me sad.
that's sad.
Yeah.
History is depressing. Yeah, they give the Union the bullets, and then Mary Todd Lincoln kills the head vampire lady
Mhm.
with a cross and a gun.
Not a cross. It was her
Just a
son's
necklace,
little
just a
sword.
necklace.
It was her
Oh,
son's
right, sword.
toy sword.
Come on, John, use that brain of yours.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. All right, should we just rate it? Because
Lindsay's just
I'm
been
like
here the whole
done,
time,
like,
like,
I
I don't
have
even want
nothing
to
to
talk
add to
about
this.
this.
I don't have anything to say. I was done with this movie 5 minutes in, and
Yeah.
I'm done with it now.
Oh, well, we can't forget that Henry is still alive in, like, the 20th century, helping some other guy at the bar out.
Oh yeah, that's
To end
right.
the
At the
movie.
very end. Yep.
We're What if he's gonna be like the Son of Sam? You gonna go help the Son of Sam? He might not be killing vampires, Henry. He's just got a gun. That's all that means.
He will forever be helping the fight against vampires.
And he's like, I'm gonna kill somebody. My ex-wife and her lover. Bah. Oh, well, that's not me, man. That's not my department. Sorry. Balls. All right, what do you give this movie?
I give this movie a 2.
Yeah.
For entertainment and visual effects. That's it. Those are the only positives I found to this movie.
I give it a 1.
Ooh!
Lowest score I've ever given. I didn't enjoy anything about it, to be honest. I mean, I guess the visual effects were okay. That can give a 1. But I mean, I didn't like it. To me, it was just a ridiculous, pointless mess.
Yeah.
Boring.
I'm sorry.
Oh no, don't apologize.
But you gotta have the bad ones to
Right,
appreciate
yeah.
the good ones.
That's
Right?
true,
Definitely.
that's true.
Okay.
I gave it a 1, and it's not for the fucking visual effects. There were times when I was like, oh my god, could that be more green screen? Oh!
Yeah.
I give it a 1 because it made me look up stuff on Abe Lincoln. And then I spent like a day talking to you about Abe Lincoln. That's it. Like, this movie is not my kind of movie. I watched, oh shit, what was that movie where they brought all of the, like, literary heroes together? And Sean Connery was in it. The
League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
That's what this was. That's exactly what this was.
I hated that movie.
From
I didn't
beginning
watch
to
that.
end. That's exactly what this was. Montages, killing people that I don't even know who they are and they're dead, burying their bodies, then there's one main villain, then they go find him, then they go find him again later, and the movie's over. That's what this is. Yuck.
Your voice a little higher? Oh my god.
Whew. Okay. That was a short episode, guys.
Alright. How long was that?
33 minutes. That's
okay.
There
that's
just wasn't
easy.
too much
Oh
to
wait,
say
you
about
have to
that
say
one.
you have to do
Oh,
your...
hell. If you want to get a hold of us, let me see if I can stretch this out and really make you upset. No. Facebook.com/horrorcasting. Horrorcastings@gmail.com. We're on Twitter @horrorcasting. We're on YouTube. That's the one that I forgot last time. We're on Spotify. We are on Apple Podcast. And we are on Podbean.
Now it's time for your thrill me.
Do it!
Thrill me!
Is that your Abe Lincoln?
That was my, English gentleman.